Had a pretty good selection to choose from with racing from Santa Anita as well as Churchill Downs being the focal point. But I'm going to start with Mercanti. Here's a horse for Brian Nippenberg, who we heard this amazing story leading into the race that Brian was working for Carl Pollard at the farm, and he was rehabilitating this horse off a year layoff. And as he started to get healthy and get good, he asked him, hey, if this horse comes back, could I train the horse? And he ran a huge second in the Grade 1 turf race before the Kentucky Derby. He was 13-1. Then he comes back and flatters that, a horse by Gunrunner on the turf. And Dave, bottom line is, they disrespected the connections. Because if, let's say, Chad Brown was training this horse would have for sure been the favorite. Instead, it was the lightly known Brian Nippenberg. The horse almost paid $9.
And beat a horse in Brilliant Birdie who had never lost on the turf at Churchill before. I had the fade or favorite or fade. I faded him because I like Brilliant Birdie, but he ran a good race, too, in defeat.
No, I can't blame him. I mean, he came out of a race at Turfway Park. He ran way better than I thought there on Derby Day, and then flattered what most bettors thought was kind of a one-off race and gets it done there yesterday.
All right, so who's going to be number 2?
Number 2, we're going to go for Nisos. This horse was going to be the favorite last year in the Preakness, but had a little bit of stunt in his health and had to miss basically a year at the races.
Yeah.
Came back with a titanic effort, finishing second in the Churchill Handicap. But you know what's interesting about this? He's going to get a 108 buyer. He's by Nyquist. He could be a dirt mile horse. He could be a classic horse. He could be a sprinter. You never know. But look at how Baffert went with this horse. Baffert has been in the express lane on the 3-year-old trail. Cornucopian, you won one race, you're going to the Arkansas Derby. Goal-oriented, you started back a month ago, you're going to the Preakness. The Derby's not in play, obviously, for Nisos. He's a 4-year-old. So what do? They actually took the more conservative route. They could have very easily gone to the Metropolitan Mile next week, Belmont weekend, big Grade 1, but they held back, got an easy win, wins by 5, and got a career-high 108
So
buyer.
what's the end goal? I mean, here's a horse that we see work out all the time at Santa Anita, but he very rarely races. He's only raced 5 times in his career, and he's undefeated at Santa Anita. Maybe keep him sprinting, go longer? I mean, could he be a classic type of a horse?
I mean,
I always think he wants to go long.
I would think so, too. 2 straight 7-furlong races might make you think that he could be more of a dirt mile type, but we've seen a horse like Flightline, 7-furlong Malibu out to the classic distance. Not to say that he is a Flightline, but he has this exceptional talent. He's a neck away off a year layoff from being undefeated. He'd be 5 for 5, and he, again, was going to be a gigantic favorite in last year's Preakness if he went to the race.
He beat a really good horse named Dr. Venkman as well. All right, so that leaves us with number 1. Who's it going to be?
He is back in the winner's circle at Churchill Downs. Mystic Dan,
yeah,
in the absolute same fashion that he won last year's Kentucky Derby. And look, you thought that maybe you'd seen the best of Mystic Dan. He was poor in the Belmont, came back and didn't lift up in the Malibu, didn't lift up at all in the Pegasus. But last time out, he got a second-place effort. And the way that Brian Hernandez cut the corner, you can't underestimate how much a horse loves Churchill Downs, and Mystic Dan is one of those horses. And a pretty good field. You know, Most Wanted didn't run in the race, but Antiquarian was in the Belmont. Hall of Fame's a $1 million horse. You know, Post Time was second in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and Mystic Dan holds him by almost a full length.
Yeah, the loss to Saudi Crown at Oaklawn was gigantic. And then when Kenny McPeak says he couldn't do any better coming into this race, and you factor in the last time he raced at Churchill Downs, he beat 2 of the best horses in the world in Sierra Leone and Forever Young. He paid $8. It's amazing that he paid $8.
Yeah, and, you know, Kenny McPeak kind of fell on the sword. He said that he would take the blame for a couple of those spottings. I'll tell you my theory on Mystic Dan. Weirdly off the layoff going to the Malibu.
Yeah, that was never going to work out.
I can't blame Kenny McPeak. I think he wanted to make one final push at winning the Eclipse Champion
But
trainer.
he's not a 7-furlong horse, though,
He's
right?
not.
Yeah.
He's not. But look at it this way. Chad Brown and Brad Cox had better numbers. They had more volume. They had more earnings. But Kenny McPeak had the Horse of the Year, Torpedo Anna.
Like if I can get one more Grade 1.
If he could go out and make that statement, if Wise Dan or if Mystic Dan could have won the Malibu, I think maybe he could have won the Eclipse Championship Trainer Award, but didn't fire there. Didn't fire in the Pegasus,
Not at
but
all.
back at Oaklawn Park with that 101 buyer. The race before was his career best speed figure. This race yesterday, Dave got a 99, still pretty close to his Derby win, and Mystic Dan back in the winner's circle.
All right, so we called that Stephen Foster Preview Day. Is he, obviously that's his next step. Is he the favorite in that race or not?
I kind of don't think so because it looks like
be a stacked field.
Looks like Sierra Leone is pointed to the race. Now we're not going to get Forever Young, but it looks like we're going to have a rematch of Mystic Dan and Sierra Leone last year at the Derby. They're coming down to a nose and should be 2 contestants in this year's Stephen Foster.
All right.